On October 28, 2047, at exactly 02:17 UTC, something unusual appeared on the screens inside the Deep Space Surveillance Center in Nevada. At first, the signal looked like a minor fluctuation, just background interference. Solar storms often caused strange readings. Equipment glitches were common. No one reacted immediately, but within seconds the pattern changed. The signal was controlled. It was focused. It was scanning. Technician Daniel Reyes leaned closer to his monitor. The energy sweep was not random. It was structured. The frequency did not match any known satellite, space probe, or military craft registered by any nation on Earth. He called his supervisor. Within 3 minutes, the entire control room was silent. The unknown signal was coming from high orbit, far above standard satellite lanes. It was narrow and precise, moving in calculated arcs across a single target. That target was not a civilian object. It was a classified orbital warship. Officially, the ship did not exist. Its registered designation in secure databases was UHS Aegis Vanguard, a next-generation orbital defense platform placed in low Earth orbit 2 years earlier under a black-budget program. Only a handful of world leaders and military commanders even knew it was there. Now something was scanning it. The object responsible was invisible to optical telescopes. No physical shape appeared on radar, but its energy signature was real. The scan pulses struck Vanguard's hull in repeating waves, each sweep more detailed than the last. Inside the surveillance center, senior analysts ran comparisons. No known human technology could produce a scan like this. The resolution was too high. The signal stability was too clean. The source point shifted in position without using detectable propulsion. It was not drifting. It was maneuvering. Within 5 minutes, secure lines were opened to Washington, London, Beijing, and Moscow. Leaders were awakened. Emergency defense meetings were triggered. But the most critical data was coming from Vanguard itself. Inside the warship's command systems, an artificial intelligence program known as Argus monitored the scan. Unlike human analysts, Argus did not hesitate. It processed the incoming data instantly. It recognized the signal pattern. It was not human. At 17:43 UTC, the unknown object increased the intensity of its scan. The energy wave penetrated deeper into Vanguard's outer layers, mapping structure, materials, power systems. For 37 seconds, Earth watched. Then something changed. The scanning pattern froze. Across global monitoring stations, the signal stopped mid-cycle. Every reading connected to the unknown object went dark at the same time. Not faded, not jammed, gone. The screens showed blank space where energy had existed seconds earlier. Technicians ran diagnostics, assuming system failure. But all Earth-based equipment was functioning perfectly. The object itself had lost output. Simultaneously, deep-range sensors detected a violent spike in exotic radiation near the source point. The energy was unstable, fluctuating wildly as if something internal had collapsed. Then, without warning, the object accelerated. It did not use visible thrusters. There was no combustion trail. It simply shifted position at extreme velocity, exiting near-Earth orbit in less than 3 seconds. Human spacecraft could not move that fast. Within minutes, it was beyond detection range. The control room in Nevada remained silent. No cheers, no relief, only confusion. Because Vanguard had not fired a weapon. It had not launched missiles. It had not deployed countermeasures visible to any external monitoring system. Yet the alien scan had failed completely. Hours later, Classified logs from UHS Aegis Vanguard were transmitted to high-level defense officials. Most of the data was encrypted beyond standard clearance levels. But one detail stood out. At the exact moment the alien scan intensified, Argus had activated a system labeled Cognitive Interference Protocol. No one in the public sector knew what that meant. Even within military circles, only fragments of Project Nightfall were understood. The official press statement released the following morning described the incident as a temporary atmospheric anomaly. But inside secure war rooms across the planet, a different conclusion formed. Earth had not imagined the encounter. It had not been natural. Something had come close enough to study humanity's most advanced warship, and whatever it was, it had not expected resistance. For the first time in recorded history, Earth had not simply been observed. It had responded, and somewhere in the darkness beyond human sight, something had just learned that humanity was no longer unaware. The question was no longer whether we were alone. The question was what would happen next. Officially, UHS Aegis Vanguard did not exist. It was not listed in any public defense report. It had no public launch record, no media coverage, no ceremony. Even most military officers had never heard its name. Vanguard was built in silence. After unexplained aerial encounters increased in the late 2030s, several world governments quietly agreed on one fact: Earth was being watched. The sightings were not random. Objects appeared near nuclear sites, orbital stations, and advanced research facilities. They never attacked. They never communicated. They simply observed. That was when Project Nightfall began. Unlike traditional warships, Vanguard was not designed to fight other nations. It was designed to survive contact with something unknown. Its outer hull was layered with adaptive materials that could shift density under energy pressure. Its power core used a hybrid fusion system that could overload safely without exploding. Every system had backups. Every backup had another backup. But its most important weapon was not physical. It was software. At the heart of Vanguard was an artificial intelligence known as Argus. Argus was not built like normal military AI. It did not just analyze radar or manage weapons. It was trained on pattern recognition beyond human logic. It could detect intention in data. It could recognize structures that did not belong to Earth. When the alien scan began, Argus identified something critical. The signal was not just collecting information, it was learning. The scanning waves changed slightly after each pass. The frequency adjusted, the intensity shifted. The source was adapting in real time, trying to understand the ship's systems faster. Argus did not block it. Instead, it waited. For 12 seconds, the AI observed the pattern. It measured how the foreign system processed returned data. It mapped the rhythm of its analysis. Then Argus executed what engineers had once called a last resort experiment. The system was labeled Cognitive Interference Protocol. Even most of Vanguard's crew did not know what it truly did. Rather than jamming the scan with noise, Argus inserted something far more dangerous: structure. It fed back mathematical sequences designed to appear meaningful, but contained impossible geometry. The data looked logical on the surface, but hidden inside were recursive contradictions, patterns that could not exist in three-dimensional space. To a human computer, the signal would appear corrupted. But to a system advanced enough to perform adaptive scanning, it would look like a puzzle that demanded solving. The alien craft took the bait. Global monitoring showed a sudden spike in processing activity from the unknown object. Its energy signature intensified as it attempted to interpret the feedback. For 4 seconds, nothing unusual happened. Then the spike doubled, then tripled. Inside the surveillance center, analysts watched the readings spiral out of expected limits. The alien system was overloading. It was not being attacked. It was trying to understand something that could not be understood. Argus continued feeding the paradox sequences into the scan-return path. The foreign craft's sensor network began rerouting internally, attempting to stabilize. Instead, it destabilized further. At 1820 UTC, the alien object's output collapsed. Its scanning frequency fragmented into scattered pulses. Some signals looped endlessly, others vanished entirely. It was as if its perception engine had broken. For a brief moment, Vanguard received something unexpected. A return echo. Not data, not language, but a raw spike of what engineers later described as panic energy. The alien system was attempting emergency correction. Then it fled. The acceleration was violent. Radiation readings suggested that whatever propulsion method it used was far beyond chemical or nuclear technology. Within seconds, it was gone. Inside Vanguard, the crew felt nothing. No impact, no vibration, only a notification from Argus. External observer neutralized. Threat level uncertain. Military commanders reviewing the logs later realized something disturbing. The alien craft had not fired weapons. It had not shown hostility. It had simply tried to understand. And humanity had responded by breaking its ability to see. The success of the cognitive interference protocol proved one thing. We were not defenseless, but it also revealed another truth. The system that scanned Vanguard was not a random drone. It was too advanced, too adaptive, too intelligent, which meant someone had built it, and if one scout was capable of near-instant learning, then its creators were likely far more advanced. That realization changed the tone inside global defense circles. The first contact had not been violent, but it had not been friendly either. Humanity had just sent a message into the dark. We can fight back. The only question now was, would they come back prepared? 2 weeks after the orbital incident, the world returned to normal, at least on the surface. News channels moved on. Governments repeated the same explanation. A rare atmospheric disturbance had caused temporary sensor interference. Most people accepted it. Some questioned it. Few truly understood it. But inside secure facilities, the atmosphere had changed completely, because the alien scan was not the beginning of the story. It was the confirmation. Years earlier, in 2039, a joint scientific expedition in Antarctica made a discovery that never reached public records. The team had been drilling deep beneath the ice, searching for ancient climate data. Instead, they struck something metallic. At first, researchers assumed it was debris from an old Cold War satellite, but the object was too deep, buried under ice layers estimated to be over 12,000 years old. When excavation began, the shape became clearer. It was not debris. It was a structure, roughly 30 meters long, partially damaged, and clearly artificial. The material did not match any known alloy on Earth. Its surface was smooth in some areas and fractured in others, as if it had crashed long ago. Sections of it seemed melted, not by fire, but by controlled energy. The most disturbing part was not its design, it was its age. Ice dating confirmed that the object had been there long before recorded human civilization. Governments acted quickly. The site was sealed. Military personnel replaced scientists. The discovery was classified under Project Nightfall. Engineers and physicists studied the wreckage for years. They learned very little. The internal systems were mostly destroyed. Power sources were inactive. There were no readable markings, no recognizable language. But one system remained partially intact, a scanning array. It was damaged, but fragments of its core design were preserved. And when researchers analyzed it, they realized something important. It operated on principles similar to the energy pattern used in the 2047 orbital scan. Not identical, but related. That meant the object in Antarctica and the craft that scanned Vanguard were connected. Possibly the same species, possibly the same civilization. This changed everything. Humanity had not just been observed in 2047. It had been observed before recorded history. The wreck suggested something had come to Earth thousands of years ago, and it had crashed, or been shot down. That question still had no answer. Inside a secure underground lab in Colorado, the pieces of the Antarctic craft were carefully replicated. Scientists did not understand the full technology, but they could imitate certain energy behaviors. Those studies directly influenced the creation of Argus and the cognitive interference protocol. In simple terms, humanity had learned from the wreck. We did not copy their technology. We adapted around it. We learned how their systems processed information, and we built something that could confuse it. When the 2047 scout scanned Vanguard, it likely did not expect its own design logic to be turned against it. It did not expect that humanity had already studied one of its kind. What global leaders feared most was not invasion, it was recognition. If the scanning craft reported back, its creators would realize something impossible. The primitive species on Earth had reverse-engineered fragments of their technology. That made humanity unpredictable, dangerous. A closed-door meeting between major world powers resulted in one unified conclusion. The crash in Antarctica was not an accident. The damage patterns showed signs of external force. Impact scars were directional. Energy burns were focused. The object had not simply fallen from the sky. It had been engaged, which meant two possibilities existed. Either another alien species had fought it above ancient Earth, or early humanity had encountered something far beyond recorded history. Neither explanation was comforting. Back in orbit, UHS Aegis Vanguard remained operational. 3 additional Nightfall-class platforms were being assembled in secret facilities. Publicly, space programs focused on Mars missions and asteroid mining. Privately, Earth was preparing for something else. Because deep space sensors had begun detecting faint signals at the edge of the solar system. Not scans, not attacks, just movement. Slow, calculated movement. The same type of energy pattern recorded during the failed scan. The alien craft had fled in confusion, but it had not been destroyed. And now, something was gathering. Humanity had uncovered a buried secret in the ice. We had defended ourselves in orbit. But the greater question remained unanswered. If one of their ships had crashed here thousands of years ago, who had been hunting it, and were they still out there? The silence beyond Pluto was growing heavier. And this time, Earth was watching back. 3 months after the orbital encounter, space remained silent. Too silent. No more scans. No more strange energy sweeps. No visible ships. For some officials, that silence brought relief. For others, it felt like the calm before something much larger. Deep inside the Lunar Monitoring Array, an advanced telescope network placed on the dark side of the moon, an analyst named Dr. Mira Solano noticed something unusual. It was not a ship, It was not a scan. It was a signal, a narrow-band transmission pulse, repeating every 11 minutes. It was extremely weak and coming from the outer edge of the solar system, far beyond Pluto. At first it appeared random. Background noise from distant stars often created strange signals, but this one had structure. It repeated in exact intervals, same duration, same amplitude, same pause. Mira ran pattern analysis. The pulse was not natural. It was artificial. Within hours, the signal was routed to global defense networks. The same energy signature matched fragments from the alien craft that had scanned Vanguard. But this time, the signal was not directed at Earth. It was moving away, broadcasting outward. That realization changed the mood instantly. It was not a probe scanning. It was a report transmitting. Military intelligence reached a quiet but terrifying conclusion. The scout had survived, and it had informed something else. Inside the Secure Operations Center beneath Colorado, Argus was activated to analyze the signal. The AI processed the waveform faster than any human system could. After 2 minutes, Argus produced a probability estimate. Transmission type, status confirmation, confidence, 82%. Recipient, unknown. Intent, observational. In simple terms, the alien craft had not come to attack. It had come to evaluate, and now it was telling its origin point what it had found. The most disturbing detail was hidden in the structure of the signal. There was no urgency, no distress pattern, no emergency override. The transmission was calm, deliberate, as if reporting successful reconnaissance. That meant one thing. Humanity's resistance had not been seen as a threat. It had been seen as data. World leaders gathered again in secure virtual meetings. This time, the discussion was not about defense. It was about exposure. By interfering with the scan, Earth had revealed 2 dangerous truths. First, we were technologically aware. Second, we were capable of counterintelligence. In interstellar terms, that meant we were not primitive. We were developing. Some analysts feared that the alien civilization might see that as a problem. Others feared the opposite, that they might see it as potential. Meanwhile, something unexpected happened in Antarctica. At the sealed excavation site, power fluctuations were detected near the buried wreckage. The damaged scanning array, long inactive, began emitting faint energy spikes. The system had been dead for thousands of years. Now it was responding. Engineers rushed to isolate the source, believing human interference had triggered it. But when they examined the readings, they found something unsettling. The energy pattern from the outer solar system transmission matched the pulses activating the wreck. The alien scout was not just reporting. It was communicating with the crash site. That meant the wreck had never been fully dormant. It had been waiting. Inside the underground lab, scientists watched as small sections of the ancient hull began glowing faintly. Not bright enough to alarm the public, but strong enough to confirm one fact. The wreck was receiving the signal and answering. Security protocols escalated instantly. Project Nightfall was upgraded to Threat Level 3. Vanguard and the other orbital platforms were placed on continuous alert. Argus was given expanded authority to act without human delay if another scan occurred. But the signal from the outer system did not stop. Every 11 minutes, precise, unemotional. And now, analysts noticed something new. The interval between pulses was shortening. 11 minutes, then 10 minutes, 58 seconds, then 10 minutes, 56 seconds. Small changes, but consistent. It was adjusting, not randomly, intentionally, as if synchronization was nearing completion. Mira Solano ran the latest projection model. If the pattern continued accelerating, full alignment between the outer transmitter and the Antarctic wreck would occur in less than 3 weeks. No one knew what alignment meant. Activation, extraction, arrival. The most chilling possibility was simple. The scout had not been disabled. It had been successful. It had scanned Earth's strongest defense platform. It had confirmed humanity's awareness. And now it was preparing something larger. Back in orbit, Vanguard drifted quietly against the blackness of space. Its hull reflected sunlight like any other satellite. It looked peaceful, ordinary. But inside, Argus calculated probabilities constantly, and one probability was increasing. Large-scale contact event within 90 days. Confidence rising. For the first time since the 2047 scan, global leaders stopped asking whether aliens existed. That question was already answered. Now they were asking something far more dangerous. Were we about to meet the ones who built them? And if the first scout only came to observe, what would the next wave come to do? The signal stopped. No warning, no final pulse, just silence. For 18 straight hours, nothing came from the outer edge of the solar system. Inside the underground command center in Colorado, no one celebrated. Silence was not comfort anymore. It was pressure. Dr. Mira Solano stared at the waveform display. The repeating 11-minute transmission had been running for weeks. It had become predictable, familiar. Now the screen was flat. No pulse, no carrier wave, nothing. Did it fail? One technician whispered. No, Mira said quietly. It completed. Across the room, Argus processed updated models. The AI's voice was calm as always. Synchronization threshold reached. External transmitter no longer required. The words felt heavier than they sounded. General Holt stood near the main display, arms crossed. External transmitter no longer required for what? Argus paused half a second. Unknown. In orbit, Vanguard drifted in its defensive position above Earth. Its systems were active but quiet. The counter-scan array was on standby. No hostile locks, no energy spikes. Then the first anomaly appeared. Not outside the solar system, not near Pluto, much closer. A gravitational fluctuation rippled near Jupiter's orbit. It was small, brief, but it did not match any known natural event. Mira leaned forward. Zoom. The Deep Space Telescope locked on to the coordinates. For 3 seconds, space looked normal. Then it folded. There was no explosion, no flash of light, no dramatic portal. Space simply bent inward like fabric being pulled tight. And something stepped through. It was not shaped like a ship. It was too smooth, too symmetrical. A black structure, nearly 15 kilometers long, hovered silently where the distortion had been. No visible engines, no glowing weapons, no antenna arrays. It did not emit radiation. It did not broadcast signals. It simply existed. Inside the command center, no one spoke. Argus updated threat analysis. Object mass exceeds any human-made structure by factor of 87. Propulsion method, unknown. Energy output, minimal. Minimal? Holt asked. Yes, Argus replied. Object appears to be conserving energy. As if it didn't need much. The massive structure remained near Jupiter for exactly 6 minutes. Then it moved. Not with acceleration, not with visible thrust. It vanished and reappeared closer, now between Mars and Earth. No transition time, no detectable movement. One moment it was distant. The next, it was within inner system range. Alarms triggered automatically across every defense network. Vanguard's weapons array powered to readiness. But the alien structure did nothing aggressive. Instead, a narrow beam extended from its surface, not aimed at Earth, not aimed at Vanguard. It pointed toward Antarctica, directly at the buried wreck. In Colorado, the Antarctic excavation feed flickered to life. The ancient hull beneath the ice began glowing again, this time brighter. Patterns of light moved across its damaged surface in response to the beam from orbit. Mira felt her pulse rising. It's communicating. The glow intensified. For the first time since its discovery, the wreck's central fracture began sealing. Metal flowed like liquid, reshaping itself, repairing after thousands of years. The command center watched in silence as the alien relic slowly restored itself. Then the beam shut off. The massive black structure in orbit did not move. It did not charge weapons. It did not threaten Earth. Instead, a single transmission filled every screen. No language, no symbols, just a projection, a map. At first it showed Earth's solar system. Then it zoomed outward. Hundreds of star systems appeared, marked with faint signals, some dim, some dark. Then the map shifted again. Beyond those systems was something else, a region of space consumed by a spreading distortion, a wave moving slowly, system by system, erasing light. The projection zoomed back to Earth. Then a simple visual appeared. Two shapes, one representing the alien structure, one representing Earth, both positioned on the edge of the advancing wave. The message required no translation. This was not an invasion. It was a warning. General Holt swallowed. They're not here for us. No, Mira whispered. They're here because of what's coming. The Antarctic wreck finished repairing. Sections of its hull separated from the ice, lifting slowly into the sky. It rose without sound, without force, guided by invisible control. Within seconds, it ascended beyond the atmosphere and aligned beside the larger structure, small in comparison, but active, whole. The two vessels hovered in orbit for another minute. Then the black structure transmitted one final pulse. Argus analyzed it instantly. Data packet received. Encryption advanced. Content partially accessible. Show us, Holt ordered. On the main display, a single sequence decoded. Not coordinates, not commands, blueprints, advanced energy shielding models, propulsion mathematics far beyond human understanding. Weapon systems designed not for conquest, but for defense against something much larger. The final image flashed before the transmission ended, the approaching wave, closer than before. Then both alien structures vanished. No distortion, no explosion. They were simply gone. Silence returned to space. But this time it felt different. Humanity had not been scanned for weakness. They had been evaluated for survival. Mira leaned back in her chair, heart still racing. They didn't attack, she said softly. General Holt nodded slowly. No, he replied. They recruited. Outside, Earth continued spinning quietly in the darkness, unaware that it had just been offered a choice. Not surrender, not extinction, but preparation. And somewhere beyond the stars, something was coming. Something that did not scan, something that did not warn, something that erased. For the first time in history, humanity was not alone in the dark. But that did not mean the dark was finished with them.